Player props here on PrizePicks for Wednesday, October 30th. Before we get started, link in the description below of the video. Hop into the Discord. $9.30 per month, 31 cents per day. Currently doing a promo right now. 20% off your first month if you are a first-time member. It comes out to like $7 for the first month. Again, link in the description below. Super positive community, guys. That's where I post all the plays I'm making on PrizePicks. Other cappers in there as well. Super positive community overall. Link in the description below for that. I do also want to talk about Daily Grind Fantasy really quickly. The DFS Optimizer is an absolute elite tool that I do use on a regular basis to add plays into my parlays. Just does all the hard work for you. Current top play on the board on PrizePicks. The DFS Optimizer, again, they've got it on underdog, parlay play, better picks, sleeper, whatever DFS platform you like to use. Daily Grind does have the DFS optimizers for those platforms. But on PrizePicks, XUN maps 1 to 3 over 7, 57.16 odds to hit because it's on hot streak at 9.5. Showing these different line discrepancies between different platforms is where you can really be profitable as a bettor. So again, Daily Grind really helps that. Link in the description below. Promo code TUFF gets you 25% off your first month over at Daily Grind. But let's get into these two NBA plays. Again, we started 4-0 NBA, and then kind of just had a weird streak of 1-1 days. Definitely looking to bounce back, go 2-0 tonight. Massive NBA slate as well. But let's get into it. First play I'm looking at is going to be a fantasy score line. Again, both these plays are going to be fantasy scores. I just think currently early NBA season, fantasy scores, there's a ton of value in them. But the first one's going to be RJ Barrett over 35.5 fantasy score. So a couple reasons I like this spot. One, there's going to be no Manuel Quickly. Most likely he's doubtful. And then Scotty Barnes is out. Bruce Brown is out and Kelly Olynyk's out. So RJ Barrett should just soak up a ton of usage and a ton of minutes in this one. He did come back and play his first game of the year after missing the couple of games to start the season. He finished with 25 and 3 in 29 minutes. Shot 9 for 21 from the field. So 21 field goal attempts for RJ Barrett to start the season with Scotty Barnes in that lineup. Shows me that he has a ton of usage in this offense and a ton of usage on this team with or without Scotty Barnes. He did see the highest usage on the team in that game in only 29 minutes, 31.7% usage. Scotty Barnes 28.7. So Scotty Barnes' 28% usage is now off the floor, which should give RJ Barrett just massive usage in this one. But going back to last season, when without Scotty Barnes, 7 of 10 games, he averaged 38.45 fantasy points. Essentially, it's starting here in Charlotte is when this started, because that's when he got traded. So he's actually over in 7 of 9 games, averaging probably a little closer to, I would say, 40 fantasy points during that span. And we look at RJ Barrett last season versus the Hornets, with the Toronto Raptors. He went over this in both games, 39.7 and 41.1. And like I said, I just think there's a ton of upside when you talk about those fantasy score lines that RJ Barrett had without Scotty Barnes in the lineup. Multiple 5 games, 40 plus fantasy points, 39.1 here, 36.4 would hit the over on this line for us. 23, 2 and 4, 1 and 1, right? Would clear this line pretty easily. And that was on, not even 20 plus field goal attempts. Like if we filter this to like Scotty Barnes' fantasy score last season, logging, he's gonna probably see close to 20 plus field goal attempts tonight. And again, this game's on the road, so I'm expecting this game to be super competitive in Charlotte. His fantasy score game totals when he shot the ball 20 times last season, 31, 38.6, 43.9, and 56.2. But both games with Toronto, 43.9 and 56.2 fantasy points. Those other games were with the Knicks, obviously. But RJ Barrett, last season with Pascal, Quickly, and Barnes off the floor, averaged 42.6 fantasy points per 36 minutes, 1.2 fantasy points per minute, and obviously saw insane amount of usage at 32.4%. Again, like I said, in that first game, he had the most usage on the team in a small sample size, only 29 minutes, but the usage and the volume just absolutely going to be there for him tonight in this one. I'm not really overthinking it at 35.5. I think it's some good value here, so I like RJ Barrett over 35.5 is the first play. The second play, we're going back to him here. He did cash for his last game. It's going to be Coulibaly, if you will, populate for us. Coulibaly over 28.5 fantasy score. I think, again, another great spot for him in a rematch versus Atlanta. But the key for this game is there's no Kyle Kuzma. So looking at this matchup, the highest over-under, or one of the highest over-unders on the slate, 232.5, home game for the Washington versus Atlanta at home. And no Kyle Kuzma is huge for us here. We know Washington and Atlanta, two bottom feeders when it comes to defensive rating, right? Washington has the worst defensive rating. Atlanta has the fifth worst defensive rating, and we know both these teams like to play very fast. Washington, fourth fastest pace. Atlanta, fifth fastest pace. So, poor defense, fast pace, should be a ton of offense. I mean, the game they just faced, went against each other, 121-119 in Atlanta. And the key for me here is Kyle Kuzma in that game played 40 minutes, had 27.9% usage. He's going to be gone in this one. He's going to be off the floor. Bilal Coulibaly, I think he had actually one fantasy point in the first quarter. In that game, he still finished with 27.9 fantasy points. Played 37 minutes here, 17, 2, 3, and 2. 2 turnovers, and I definitely think we see a significant increase in his field goal attempts in this one. Steals plus blocks as well. He's favored tremendously, minus 180, minus 190 on books to get, at least 2 stocks in this one. And like I said, I mean, with Kyle Kuzma off the floor this season, again, super small sample size, per 36, he's averaging 36.5 fantasy points per 36 minutes, which again, 28.6 does the over for us. So I like that kind of discrepancy in his per 36 minute averages with Kuzma off the floor. And then again, favored heavily to get 2 stocks in games last season when he had 2+ stocks. You can see his fantasy score lines in this column here, which gives us a safe floor in my opinion here in this one. I mean, last season in a game versus Atlanta, he had 31.7 fantasy points. And let's actually go to this game here. 31.7 fantasy points. And in that game, I think Kuzma probably played. Yeah, Kuzma played. Avdia played. Gafford played. He actually came off the bench. 12, 6, 3, 2, and 1 on 8 field goal attempts. Like, this line hits the over on this fantasy score line for us in this game. And he only played 28 minutes. I'm expecting a 35+ minute floor in this one. I definitely think he's blowout proof as well. Just given the development and where they're trying to head, or direction they're trying to head with him as a player. So again, going back to him here, 2 player props for this YouTube video. Barrett, Coulibaly, both fantasy scores over. Massive NBA slate. Please drop a like, hit the subscribe button, and as always, let's cash.